Okay, so thank you so much for, first of all, for everyone being here and participating in this workshop, and thank you to Ivan and Max for organizing this. And so this session, we're just going to have an opportunity for the NSF program directors to come up and talk to you guys about some of the programs that might be of interest to this community. So there's going to be a couple of us that will talk, and I'll start off and then pass it off. But I just wanted to take a minute and just again say how important it has been for you guys to come together and do this. As was previously mentioned, there was a previous workshop like this, I think back in 2008. And I remember that and appreciated the opportunity to be part of that when I wasn't at NSF. So it's so great personally to see all these different people that have been laboring for so long in coding theory, sometimes unrecognized in terms of the field, come together to do this. So we're very excited at NSF. Personally, I'm very excited given my history. So thank you for doing this, and we're really excited to see what comes out. So what I thought I would do, now I don't know if there's other program directors in the room besides the four that are mentioned here. So what we'll do is the four of us will talk about our programs, and any other program director that's here that might want to comment or talk about their programs can do that. And then if we have any time for questions, we can ask. You'll have a chance to ask. So just briefly, most of you, of course, are familiar with NSF. Some of you might not be as much. So I don't know why this is going by itself. But NSF, we are organized in terms of, of course, we support basic research. We are the largest federal supporter of basic research in the U.S. And in terms of our budget, that's the budget from the previous year. But one thing that I think that sometimes we don't realize from the outside when I came into NSF, we know that NSF is organized by directorates, but there's a lot of interactions and cross-disciplinary programs between the different directorates. And this is really important for areas such as information theory and coding theory and biology, because obviously it needs lots of different expertise to come together. So even though we're in different directorates, we work cross-directorates, especially when it comes to bio, because of course there's significant questions that are being driven out of the biological directorate, but the tools to actually address those questions are spread across NSF, so we constantly partner with SCIENCE, engineering, MPS, and you'll hear from those program directors as well. So when you send in an idea, although it might come to a specific directorate, if you think that it fits across, please let us know, because then we can start those conversations, because we co-fund and do all types of things. Okay. All right, so I just wanted to mention, many of you know this, that NSF has these 10 big ideas. And what these 10 big ideas have done, they've catalyzed lots of areas of research. And a lot of my presentation will be with respect to bio, and then others will talk about other aspects. But these 10 big ideas have been catalysts to drive the various directors for coming together around specific ideas. When it comes to bio, one of the 10 big ideas that bio is leading is understanding the rules of life. So what that means for you is that you'll see either calls for input or calls for proposals based on this understanding the rules of life. And so when it's a 10 big idea, that means multiple directorates are involved in evaluating, receiving, and making funding decisions about the ideas that are proposed. The other one that bio is heavily involved in, but we're not necessarily leading, is harnessing the data revolution. As has been mentioned by many people here, there's a lot of data being generated from the biological sciences, and the question is, what does that tell us? How can we extract knowledge and information from it, as well as now how do we store it? So these are areas that we're heavily involved in, and one thing that we've been talking about within MCB is how does things like machine learning come into play? Because many times we support more mechanistic-based models, but what does it mean when we have a machine learning kind of working with our traditional types of mechanistic models? Okay, so specifically with respect to the Biological Sciences Directorate, and so I'm an engineer by training, in case some of you don't realize that, but I am in the Biosciences Directorate, and what that should of course say, so within MCB I'm probably one of the least, I know biology, but in terms of their viewpoint, I'm one of the least knowledgeable about biology, but it tells you something in terms of where the biosciences are going. Inside of our division, we have people from various backgrounds, so there's a lot of rich discussion in terms of how we go about funding and what are the important things to fund. So the Directorate of Biological Sciences, we have 4 units. One is the Division of Biological Infrastructure, which a lot of platform development, human resource development projects. And then we're organized across scales, and hence for this workshop being organized across scales, because that is definitely of value for the program directors as they think about information encoding theory in these various scales of biology. So depending on what you're working on, if you're looking at ecosystems, of course, there's DEB. If you're looking at neural systems and organism scales, there's iOS. And then molecular and cellular biosciences, that's our division. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that. But let's say you have an idea and you're not quite sure where to send it. There are, you can definitely send it to a PD in one of those divisions. And if it doesn't fit, we're talking across divisions. And so we'll try to find you the right place that your work fits. And there's also overlaps in terms of what's funded across those divisions. So within molecular and cellular biosciences, and you guys had the chance to hear from Teresa Good, who's our deputy division director, and of course you guys had the great honor of hearing from Joanne, who is overall of bio. But within MCB, we're kind of divided across 4 programs. The first 2 programs I'll just quickly mention are molecular biophysics and cellular dynamics and function. So molecular biophysics, you're thinking about the basic molecules within the cell and the interplay between those, whether you're looking at protein structures, things that occur across membranes. And so this is a heavily both experimental and computational focus in terms of projects that are funded. Just across all of MCB, we support quantitative, predictive, and theory-driven research. You will constantly hear that from us. So that means that a lot of computational methods are supported in terms of their application to biosciences are supported inside of our division. We are not afraid of math. We are not afraid of computation. So when you do prepare your proposals, you don't have to necessarily hide the math or the computation for it to do well in panel. The other division is, the other program is cellular dynamics and function. And so now this has to do with things that happen at the cellular scale in terms of cytoskeletal, or let's say you're looking at the movement of different substrates throughout the cellular space. So they support a lot of those types of projects. And then there's genetic mechanisms, the basic fundamental information transmission processes of the biological system. So heavy interest in terms of chromatin structure, regulatory mechanisms that control that. And of course, even in conversation and the presentations that have been made, there's several types of research questions that this community can address in that space. And then the last but definitely not least program is our program. That's Systems and Synthetic Biology. So here we support things that are more focused on the biochemical networks and the biochemical processes of the cell. So if you're looking at a gene network, signal transduction network, those types of model development, trying to find insight related to that is supported within our program, and of course synthetic biology. In terms of I would say the great supporters of early synthetic biology is NSF Bio and NSF Engineering, and of course SCIENCE also supports synthetic biology. But there's still a significant focus in terms of synthetic biology, especially if you're using it to try to push biological understanding. Also, we support microbiomes and looking at molecular communities. So if you're looking at microbial communities, we also support that within systems and synthetic biology. So I just wanted to quickly mention some of the opportunities that we have that might be of interest, and I'm just highlighting these. So of course, please, whatever you do, if you're interested, follow up with the program director prior to submitting, because that gives us a chance to have conversations and maybe give you some insight regarding the panel or regarding the review process. So MCB core opportunities, our basic solicitation is out there. The big thing to remember is we are now at no deadline. We don't have a deadline, but we do encourage you, try to submit it before we get too close to the end of the fiscal year. And so we have 2 tracks for submission. There's a regular single investigator or multiple investigator focused projects that are focused cleanly within MCB programs. But let's say that you're interested in something that crosses biological scales. We have the rules of life track. And so with that one, if you have 2 divisions that your project fits into, this would be of interest to you. There's a new career proposal that's out there. Just wanted to alert people to that. And so then there's other specific programs that I'm going to talk about just very quickly. But one thing I won't talk about, there's this new solicitations that we have called Transitions to Excellence in MCB. If you are, non-junior, so you're an associate professor and beyond, and you're interested in transitioning to a new area or expanding your knowledge into a new area, we have this new award that just came out, this new solicitation that gives you some time in terms of sabbatical time and then some support for a couple of years or a year or so prior to following that interaction. So take a look at that. It's a great opportunity, especially if you're trying to move beyond where you are. So then there's a DCL that came out last year that runs definitely through this year. And this is a partnership between SSB, well actually MCB, and the Division of Mathematical Sciences. This is called Modulus. And so this came about through discussions of, we see a lot of ODEs. We see certain types of models in systems and synthetic biology. And the math, they see all kinds of theoretical mathematical methods that might not really address a significant biological question. So Modulus was intended to bring together those communities to say, okay, are there different types of mathematical methods that we can now apply to MCB questions that will allow us to really address some of the challenging problems? So I think this is a great opportunity for this community. If you have some basic fundamental mathematical questions that need to be advanced that apply to specific fundamental biological questions, take a look at this program. We've had a couple of rounds for that, but if you submit, you have to submit prior to April 1st to be considered for this fiscal year. So we definitely encourage you to look at that. And then just a couple of other opportunities. So the Rules of Life, which is the larger NSF program, that Bio is leading those efforts. There were 2 specific solicitations related to understanding the rules of life. There was the epigenetics and the microbiome. So although you should have already submitted a letter of intent if you wanted to participate in this program, even if you did not, we just wanted to tell you to keep watching this space, because more things may come out that may be applicable to this community. And then I think already has been mentioned is the Biology Integration Institutes. So this came out, and of course the letter of intent date is passed for the full institute, but what was mentioned in terms of the design, the 200K design projects, you can still submit that up to February 6th. So I also put down the program director from MCB that's on that, that's responsible for that solicitation as well. So there's many different opportunities where, it's coming out of bio for this community to be involved in. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Mitra.
So I'll just go through one page, right? Yes, and still good morning. So as Chichi mentioned, I am from the Computer Information Science and Engineering Directorate. It's, of course, very much on the computing side, but we do have programs that support bio. And we have a core program, so we are not a no deadline, so we do have deadlines. So the core program is where you will find the bio and computer science relevant program or bio-relevant program. One of the cluster that I will mention, which I manage, is Fundamentals of Emerging Technology program, and within that we have computational biology and biocomputing. So computational biology is for you develop algorithms or you are looking at models, then that for biology, of course, that would go to computational biology program. As opposed to the biocomputing is something in which whatever we learn in biology, we want to take it to computer science domain and see if we can do some complementary work. Not necessarily our aim is not to replace silicon, that we are way behind in that. in competing with the efficiency. But we want to see what other characteristics that we can do using bio as that will complement silicon. As Chichi also mentioned, that we have synthetic biology that we support, and we have the information theory that you are the main focus of this, one of the focus of this workshop. We have communication information foundation. I got it right. Okay, so that is called that's a cluster. That also comes under the core program. So if you are submitting to that, you could talk to Phil. Phil is sitting way behind there. And if you have focus is information theory and bio, that's a place to start your talk. You can also submit it to the Fundamentals of Emerging Technology, FET. That's where all the bio proposals come in. So that's another place to submit. Now, as Chichi said, it's important to talk to the program officers before you submit so that you know what is the scope of the program and what will be supported or not supported. The other thing also is it is so great to see that you are building this community because somebody is going to review your proposal. And who is going to review your proposal? They have to have appreciation for both sides or three disciplines or whatever is involved. When you are submitting proposal, there is a way to suggest reviewers. Not necessarily that we will be using those reviewers, but it doesn't harm you if you submit, if you suggest reviewers. That's one way actually to make sure that it is reviewed by the right people in the community. As an example, I am going to, that size is interested in bio, I am going to mention this Expeditions in Computing program, which has been running for 10 years. I also manage that, and it has supported 22 projects so far. These are very large projects, $10 million over 5 years. And 2 very bio-focused and synthetic biology projects have been supported. One is called the Molecular Programming Project, which has been supported at Caltech for 10 years, and we have put in $20 million in that. And the other one I will mention is synthetic biology, so that you get a flavor of what kind of things are supported within SIZE. So if you take a look at Expeditions in Computing program, which is actually being revised and coming out with more money and longer duration, but I think that it will be ideal when many disciplines come together. So your focus still has to be computer science, something in computer science, but you could bring in other disciplines, and that will be an ideal place because many PIs will be involved. As a result, you can make use of the money, and it doesn't have to be within 3 years you have to produce results, because it is going to be a longer period of time, longer than 5 years actually, and that is in the works. It is going to come out in the next few weeks. And like Chichi mentioned, that we do interact between various directorates. So we have a cross-cutting program right now for which the deadline is March 16th. And this is the second that we have the solicitation, second time. There is one before in 2017, I think. And this is on information storage and retrieval using biomolecules, or DNA for that matter. So we are interested in getting good, I shouldn't say fast, but actually reasonable storage and retrieval system. So how fast can you store? What is the reliability? What is the error? And how do you retrieve? So the retrieval part was not in the first solicitation. Retrieval has been added here. So I would encourage all of you to take a look at that and see if you can apply here. The big ideas, 10 big ideas, one is the rules of life, and that rules of life, size heavily is involved in that. That means size is putting in money in that particular big idea. So that is another place for you to really explore what possibilities are there where you can bring in various disciplines together. That's the thing, yeah. Somebody else going to talk?
Germano? Is Germano here? Thanks. Is Germano? All right. Is this the right one? Okay. All right, great.
I completely ignored your
I know.
instructions, as you can tell. I'll still make it.
I do the same.
My name is Germano Yannicchioni. I'm the program director for the Condensed Matter Physics program in the Division of Materials Research in the Directorate of Mathematical and Physical Sciences. I want to thank Chi for the invitation to just talk to you just really quickly about connections to the mathematical and physical sciences. You probably already heard a lot of this because Kristan in the Physics of Living Systems, which is part of MPS, is helping to establish this workshop here. I'm just going to give you the materials perspective of things. Chi gave me instructions of 1 to 3 slides. I'm somewhere around 12. I am not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to quickly go through those because I just finished a workshop last week, and I want to describe that kind of framework for you. So here, just a quick brief summary of what synthetic biology currently means. It goes by several names: engineering biology, cell engineering. There's a lot of things that are going on out there. DMR is involved with the EBRC, that's the Engineering Biology Research Consortium, that's been tasked to create what's called the bioeconomy roadmap. But materials is a central focus here. And there are questions, fundamental questions, that the MPS is really interested in. For example, the chirality of a lot of these biomolecules. We know we can create the left-handed versions of everything that goes into a cell. What would happen if you booted up a left-handed cell? How would it interact with a right-handed cell? There's approximately 35,000 lipids that are out there. We don't know why there's so many, but could we create artificial ones? And so there's a whole effort in synthetic cells, which is another aspect of the understanding the rules of life, is creating the chassis artificially, not just manipulating the genetic code, not just manipulating some of the interactions within a cell, but creating artificial cells. And again, I'm going to go through this very quickly. Our main focus is covering this entire gambit from atoms to molecules to cells to flocking behavior to us eventually. And so just to give you this roundup that I wanted to focus on was the MPS activities. Kristan is leading the Physics of Living Systems, focusing on fundamental physical processes that living systems utilize. Chemistry focuses on the chemistry of life processes. In mathematics, there are lots of joint initiatives, mostly on harnessing the data revolution. In materials research, we've always had in condensed matter physics a soft condensed matter side, and we have a biomaterials program. I ran that for about a year or so. And so in order to bring these two communities together, we implemented the square table idea. It's trying to close the research paradigm and bring in concepts of sustainability, going from discovery to development to deployment to decommissioning these new materials. And a lot of this is information driven. So the square table idea was to bring together the synthetic biology community, the biomaterials or soft condensed matter community with the regulators and the funding agencies. Surprisingly, these two communities do not share the same journals, nor do they share the same conferences, and they met for the very first time at these kind of very small venues. Again, the idea was to bring together the funding agencies, so we had a lot of representation, small context presentations with lots of discussions, very much like the format you guys are following. And as I said, we just completed ST3, which was information-driven biomaterials. And there are some specific outcomes. So in terms of programmatic things that you guys could focus on, the best resource to go to is nsf.gov. The search engine there is an amazing search engine. So you type in synthetic biology solicitations, and you're going to get all the current solicitations. You do synthetic biology DCL, for Dear Colleague Letter. You're going to get all kinds of information about what currently is being offered and funded. More importantly, go to the awards search engine. Do advanced search and search for what we currently funded in these different areas. You will find a wealth of information of things that are in either the data, harnessing the data revolution or synthetic cells, and it lists the programs directly. And as has been mentioned many times, contact the program directors. I'm going to advocate writing up what's called a white paper. This is government speak for having a piece of paper that has one page, your idea, what's it like, and this allows you to shop it around to the program directors before you pick the solicitation and before you pick the right program to go into. Okay, it's great if you did it, you submitted a proposal, and after the fact, we'll do our best to find the right home for it. But if you know the program you're going to write it for, you're going to do a better job writing it. Okay, so nsf.gov, we put an amazing amount of information out there, so please take as much advantage of that as possible. So thanks.
So just, yeah, was there a question? Oh yeah. Can I get Kristan and then you can go. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. So I wanted to ask Kristan to also talk to you guys, and I also wanted to make sure to acknowledge the physics of living systems for COSIV work.
Thank you. My name is Kristan Blagoev, and I run a program called Physics of Living Systems in the Division of Physics in MPS. So that program has now existed for about 12 years, and the main focus is discovering physical principles behind biological function. The program emerged from another program called Biological Physics, which was more focused on molecular biophysics, but there was a lot of overlap with MCB, and so when I came to NSF, the program refocused on things that are living. So there is no specific system, everything from bacteria all the way to ecological communities. As long as there is some physical principles that is being uncovered, my program is appropriate for such kind of proposal. In addition, excuse me. In addition, I work very closely with MCB and in bio in general, but with MCB specifically. I was co-director in 2 synthetic biology ideas lab. One was about 10 years ago. The other one was just last year, which was on synthetic cell. So very strong interactions with MCB. We co-fund a lot of proposals together. So if you have something that is related to theoretical approaches or experimental approaches to living systems, that program is very appropriate. Usually it doesn't really matter whether you submit to MCB or to POS or to Physics of Living Systems. The difference is that we have deadlines in physics. And the deadline is around the first week of December. So often happens that people are late for submitting to the deadline, and to my program they submit to MCB, so we co-review those grants. So that's not a big problem. Now physics also has another program called Physics Frontier Centers, and we co-fund with Bio 3 Physics Frontier Centers which are related to biology. One is in Urbana-Champaign, the other one is at Rice University, and the third one is in Princeton. So that's a program that runs every 3 years. It's a lengthy process of reviewing. There is a pre-proposal stage, proposal stage, and then reverse site visit. The grants are around $2.5 million per year, and we fund roughly 9 physics frontier centers in all areas of physics. But you can see the physics of living systems is 1/3 of those, and we have 14 programs in physics. So physics of living systems is one of the priorities of the division. And so if you have any questions, call me. My number is on the NSF website, and I will be very happy to talk to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Pauly. I was not scheduled to talk, so I'll be very brief. I'm in the Education and Human Resources Directorate at NSF. I just wanted to bring your attention to 2 and potentially 3 programs that you might be interested in. First is the foundation-wide RCN program, Research Coordination Networks. I saw it on Chi-Chi's slides. This is a program that supports networks of individuals to get together to solve a common problem. It's a foundation-wide program, and so all the directorates support it. I personally work on a program called Research Coordination Networks in Undergraduate Biology Education. So if you have some aspect of your work that impacts undergraduate biology education, then RCN UBE would be appropriate for you. The last thing to bring your attention to, Chi-Chi mentioned the Understanding Rules of Life. I'm part of a working group that's working on a new funding opportunity in this area. The details haven't been decided on yet, so I can't give you any details about it, except to say that it will be a research network-like program. So just be on the lookout for that.
Okay, so I think we've taken up quite a few minutes of your time. So if you have any other questions, the program directors will be here. And I do want to mention a couple of things. A lot of us have blogs, so sometimes you can sign up for the blogs for the different divisions, and then that way you get the information. The other thing, we always make an appeal not only to be reviewers, but also be rotators. Come in and be a rotating program director. That's what I'm doing. So we need your voices. We need people from various communities to come in and help us continually ask, where should we be going in terms of NSF funding and the community. So thank you for this time, and I'll turn it back over to one of you.